Ron Atkinson is a legend in the world of football. As Britain's most flamboyant manager, he's racked up over 1,000 games and won 4 major trophies. But after 7 years away from club management, he was lured back by a new role as troubleshooter. Sky One tasked him with transforming the fortunes of lower league clubs, and it was to prove his greatest ever challenge.
And now! I've been doing it on the fucking pitch.
It's like watching a fucking soap opera here, isn't it?
Fucking hell! Oh, fucking hell! That's fucking shite!
I thought I'd seen everything in football.
Since the turn of the year, Big Ron has pitted his troubleshooting wits at 2nd Division Peterborough United. But what looked on the surface a relatively straightforward mission, sort the finances, push for promotion and mentor the club's rookie boss, was to become a far greater challenge. In a drama-packed 3 months, Ron had everything but the club's kitchen sink chucked at him. The posh were virtually bankrupt.
I'm running out of money, I'm running out of time, I'm running out of ideas. I'm fucked, mate.
Manager Steve Bleasdale was struggling to assert his authority.
I'll fucking voice my opinions! I'm the fucking manager!
The players were playing up,
You youngsters have got a lot to say to me, and let me tell you now, I'm the manager here, right?
then falling out.
Calm down, you fuckers! Whoa! Whoa! Abs! Calm down!
Performances were sending club owner Barry Fry up the wall.
I expect for you to give me 100% commitment. Fucking got it?
There was dissent, disarray,
No one knows who's running the place, I don't know.
and dismay.
Top man, what the fucking hell's going on in my club?
In the end, the manager sensationally walked, just an hour before kick-off in a crucial game.
Well,
The turmoil meant Peterborough missed out on promotion, though generally Ron's input at the club was given the thumbs up.
He's always given me confidence, and so he's been good towards me and to the rest of the team, I think.
Ron was tremendous for this football club and its survival, really.
But Peterborough wasn't Ron's first taste of troubleshooting. He actually kicked off this unique project at League One Swindon Town. But events there took an entirely different turn.
Me in particular.
From the off, young rookie manager Iffy Onoura was reluctant to listen to Ron's advice and was uncomfortable having cameras in and around the dressing room. The fledgling partnership was soon on the skids.
Try and cut one corner at a time. First and foremost.
Ron, you can cut one corner at a time, not in this job. Not in this job, there's corners everywhere.
With their relationship strained, to say the least, the whole project was aborted after just 1 month.
It didn't really bring anything new to the table for me.
He didn't want to buy into it, shouldn't have bought into it. And, you know, in many ways, although we learnt a little bit from it, it's a pity we went there in the end.
At the end of the season, Swindon were relegated to the bottom tier of league football for the first time in 20 years, and the manager lost his job. So what went wrong? Why did Ron's challenge go a bit iffy? Lower league football is the ultimate testing ground for any aspiring troubleshooter. In this down-at-hill environment, there are no billionaire owners, flash Ferraris, or pop star wags. Instead, dire finances and decaying facilities reflect a life of unremitting struggle.
They talk about the pressures of the managers working at the top level. You know, the England managers' pressures, the Chelsea, the Man United, the whatever. Yeah, they have their own type of pressures and expectancies. The workload's nothing like somebody in a lower division club has to work at.
People who run these clubs are looking to save a penny here. They're always thinking about money. They're not thinking of expansion or anything else, and they're hoping that somebody can come along and produce a miracle like I did at Wimbledon and take them all the way through the divisions and give them the success on the absolute minimum budget.
As a manager of a lower league club, you have to deal with absolutely everything, and at times you deal with too much, and I can see the reason why you would have somebody who would come in and help you with a few things.
Swindon Town, nicknamed the Robins, are now a classic example of a struggling lower league club. Yet not so long ago, they enjoyed the privileged lifestyle of the Premiership elite. But their elevation to top-flight football in 1993 proved to be a false dawn. They crashed out of the Premiership after just one season, conceding a record 100 league goals.
They went into the Premiership and it took a lot of hammering. We gave them 2 good spankings when I was at the Villa.
It was inevitable from day one that they were going to be relegated straight away. They didn't have enough good players and the backing to do anything about bringing in sufficiently good enough new players to keep them in that division.
And they've since suffered one of football's most spectacular falls from grace. Twice the club came to the brink of financial ruin, and they nosedived down the leagues.
Well, they're in a shocking state, but it's just a big hole now where you just keep throwing stuff in there and nothing ever comes out.
You know, they've had changes of board, and I think they've had a couple of administrations. So generally speaking, it has been pretty well a downhill spiral.
By January 2006, the team were languishing one place off the bottom of League One. They were suffering miserable gates, hemorrhaging cash, their only regular goalscorer wanted out, and they had just appointed a young rookie as manager. All in all, pretty much as tough a challenge as it gets for a football troubleshooter.
I think it was an interesting proposition that was put to me. Obviously, we knew they'd got financial problems. We knew that they'd got a manager with L plates on. We weren't going to stick the knife into anybody. We weren't going to do a hatchet job on anybody. It was to go in and show from, if you like, almost a sympathetic point of view, how hard it is for clubs at that level to operate. That maybe people outside of that don't fully understand. Last time I came out here was when you were in the first division.
Ron's clearly a character that you will have an opinion on. You cannot say that there's any grey areas with Ron at all. He's managed one of the biggest clubs in the world in Manchester United. Clearly that must have given him some experiences that he can at least relate to Iffy, potentially to myself and other members of the management team at the club, and so there's some of that. It's always nice to have a fresh outside pair of eyes come and look at your business.
But just to complicate Ron's task, this also meant breaking entirely new ground. Never before had a specialist troubleshooter been filmed in the notoriously tricky environment of a football club.
You have to tread a fine line. Take for argument's sake it with reality shows and television where a chef goes into a kitchen. He's put in there to deliberately go, hey, that's not good enough, want you out, want you out, want you out, want you out. If those people have got another boss, they'd be going, well, hang on a bit. Once the manager's undermined, then he hasn't really got a chance.
When the Swindon Town board were approached with the big Ron proposal, they could see the potential benefits for their club.
It was certainly a chance to make Swindon a bit more of a household name. We're certainly not going to suddenly become Manchester United or Chelsea overnight. And it was good and I always saw it as a really good opportunity for people to see the insight into the day-to-day workings at a club that is struggling to make ends meet.
But they were warned that the project could only succeed with their full backing and access. And at first, this seemed too big an ask for the club's young boss. And it looked like the venture was in serious jeopardy before it had even begun.
He was hesitant, he was reluctant. My gut feeling, I was of the opinion was he won't go with that, all right? We'll look elsewhere. And then I got a phone call later on when I was on my route home to saying, I think this is going to happen. I think they're going to buy into it. And I must admit, when they said that, I thought, a bit sceptical about that. Whether he allowed himself to be swayed by the commercial people, I don't know.
I think when it was put to me, I was fortunate in the sense that they didn't say I had to do it. Obviously there's a financial element to it. If that provided help in the day-to-day running of the club, then that was something you couldn't ignore. And I suppose I was curious as well, I only knew Ron Atkinson from his career as a manager and as a pundit. So to have someone maybe come in on whatever basis to maybe just have a look and see how we do things and say, well, actually that's good or that's not, I thought in that sense it'd work. Donald Duck hero!
Iffy is one of league football's oddities. He became a professional footballer after gaining a university degree. And when he was offered the top job at Swindon in September 2005, he became one of only a handful of black managers in the league.
Iffy was a very deep thinker, ambitious, determined, and he had a very clear way of doing what he wanted to, or of achieving what he wanted to achieve, and how he wanted to go about that.
I think I'm honest. I know I'm honest. Integrity is everything for me. Someone said to me once, "Oh, you can't be like that in football, you got to be..." Well, in that case, I'd find something else to do, because that's not me. I can be stubborn, yeah, I can be stubborn, but resilience and enthusiasm are massive things for me, and that's what I'm all about.
You appear to be confident, yeah, but there's a difference between personal confidence and football confidence, whether you know what you're doing.
Despite some mutual misgivings, Iffy and the Swindon board agreed to go ahead with the troubleshooter experiment. But an issue more fundamental than Iffy's methods and means was threatening to overshadow the whole project. As we'll be reminded after the break, Big Ron's arrival came with some serious baggage.
Obviously, you can't get away from what was said in the Marcel Desailly thing, and obviously that kind of thing was beyond the pale.
He once said something about his hero was Cyril Regis. He only had to ring Cyril Regis to find out where I come from.
Ron Atkinson's troubleshooting odyssey didn't get off to the best of starts. Initially, Swindon Town's rookie manager Iffy Onoura had serious reservations about bringing in outside help, though he eventually agreed to give the project his blessing. It had been a gamble for Swindon to promote Youth Academy boss Iffy to first-team gaffer, though he'd made a solid enough start in his new job. He'd stabilised the club after its poor start to the season, but worryingly, his first 15 league games included only 3 victories. Now the novice boss faced a fresh challenge, accepting and working with an outside troubleshooter. But no sooner had the official announcement been made than his embryonic relationship with Ron was put to the test.
BBC Radio Swindon.
Good morning. Radio Swindon has learned that Swindon Town are to be the subject of a documentary series fronted by disgraced football pundit Ron Atkinson. The former Man United boss has clocked up more than 1,000 matches as a manager, but in 2004 he had to resign from his job at ITV for making a racist comment about Chelsea defender Marcel Desailly when he thought the broadcast had finished.
Iffy, I think, will actually challenge Ron and will say he doesn't think Ron has really shown proper remorse for what he said. He didn't want to play his part in Ron's rehabilitation.
Obviously, we can't get away from what was said in the Marcel Desailly thing, and obviously that kind of thing was beyond the pale.
But Big Ron felt it was time to move on.
Terry Venables said to me once, he said, "When are you going to stop apologising?" I said, "I'm fed up of hearing you apologise," and that's right. I prefer to be judged by people I've worked with, and that includes any number of black players. If that's a problem for Iffy Onoura, he only had to ring Cyril Regis to find out where I come from.
I'm certainly not painting him to be die-in-the-wool third-right man, If I'd been Ron coming in that situation, I'd have probably tried even harder, redouble my efforts and say, look, the thing I did on the radio, not making him to be die-in-the-wool.
Black players. If that's a problem for Iffy Onoura, he only had to ring Cyril Regis to find out where I come from.
I'm certainly not painting him to be die-in-the-wool third-right man, If I'd been Ron coming in that situation, I'd have probably tried even harder, redouble my efforts and say, look, the thing I did on the radio at Marcel Desailly, I've had some low moments in my life in football. That was probably the worst ever. I don't know what came over me and all that. And if I'd seen that humility in him, I'd have probably warmed to that, But there was never that side. It was very defensive straight away, as if I still had the feeling, I still had the straight feeling. He didn't really know, he didn't really understand what all the fuss was about. Because surely, because I work with black players, that's enough. Because I can't be. Well, that's not good enough. He picked the best players at the right time, and if they were black, so what?
As far as I know, I've known him for 20 odd years, and he's the least racist man I know. And I'm one of these people. I'm a loyal person. So unless somebody shows me a way, which he's not done to me, he's not shown me racial tendencies or any kind. In fact, completely the opposite. I mean, at Sheffield Wednesday, I used to get stick because everybody used to say that Ron was my dad.
In many respects, he was a pioneer. In terms of his team in the 70s, West Brom, and all that generation of black players he put through. You know, I'd love to have heard stories about, you know, when I was at West Brom and, you know, I brought Brendan Batts and Laurie Cunningham and Cyril Regis into the team. You know, he must have had stories about I'm sure at the time he must have had stories about threats to them and hostility he got from his own board or something like that. And then related to my situation now, 30 years on.
If it wasn't for the Desailly incident, I don't think it would have been a problem, to be honest with you. I think if he would have embraced him, I think if he would have got on with him. Because I don't know many people who don't get on with Ron Atkinson.
But dealing with the fallout from the Marcel Desailly controversy turned out to be the least of Iffy's problems. When he read an article in the national press which he thought implied Big Ron was coming in over his head, he was so upset he threatened to pull the plug on the whole project.
The concept was Ron came and sorted out a struggling side almost on a parallel with the Gordon Ramsay experience, sorting out a struggling kitchen. I thought, no, that's not right, we're not having that.
With tensions running high, Ron felt his first act as troubleshooter should be to reassure Iffy he wasn't after his job.
Don't forget, he's had something thrust upon him and probably think, what's going on here? I've been around the press long enough to know the way they work. I mean, it would suit the press brilliantly to have a confrontation. There will be no confrontation whatsoever on my side. I'll tell him exactly what I think.
But whilst Ron was prepared to play peacemaker, Iffy's mood seemed to be growing ever more sceptical.
The best managers keep moving forward. In Ron's case, if he was the same manager 2006 as he was in 86, then I think he'd struggle. This job for me is about getting the best out of people, and if Ron's can help in that in any way, then fine. I don't see how that would automatically make you clash straight away with someone, but you never know.
At last, in the new year, Ron travelled to Swindon's county ground to meet Iffy and begin his work as advisor in earnest. But following the project's troubled start, he first needed to clear up any misunderstandings.
Come in. Come in. Ron, how are you?
How are you, Iffy?
You well?
How are you? Very well, thank you.
Good to
Happy
see
New
you.
Year to
Happy
you.
New Year to
Hope
you.
it works out well.
Absolutely.
This is a hub of the place,
This is the nurse centre. Do you want me to do a couple of introductions?
I know there's been a lot of stuff written in the press, and sometimes that can happen. I'm telling you now, you have no threat, no problem whatsoever with me in regards to you. All I'm coming in to do, hopefully, is to help you in every way, shape or form.
We weren't there to put orders in. We were there to help. I was there to help. I was there to pass advice, and it was up to the man in charge, the boss. It was up to him to make his decision whether he wanted to take that advice, whether he wanted to take some of that advice, or whether he wanted to take all of it, or whether he wanted to take none of it. But at least it was there for him, and then that is his decision.
First thing he said to me was look, first of all, I'm not after your job, I'm not after this, which is fine, you know, respected him for saying it, but in actual fact, we didn't build on that initial respect, which you need to do.
Ron was then invited to check out training and meet the players. At the time, Swindon were preparing for a crucial away game against fellow strugglers Gillingham.
Hang on, I've lost a yard of pace.
No, I'll bring him here because you don't want to get you.
I'll come down there, we're going to watch.
It's very heavy.
But when Big Ron arrived, his civvy dress code didn't exactly impress the manager.
It was a kind of muddy training ground, and he came around in his suit and his coat, and I'm thinking, you want to put some boots on, and as if you're mucking in a bit. No media circus this. We're blue collar workers. Us, we've got to put the shift in, and this is where it does it on the training pitch.
Yeah.
Fellas, while you're stretching, just have a listen. I'm sure you're recognise the gentleman next to me, Ron Atkinson?
Yeah, very quickly, lad. Sorry, is that all right, boss? That's very quickly, just to put everybody's mind at rest. I'm not here to interfere with anybody. I'm not... I better rephrase that. Fucking no.
Female staff in the office disappointed.
Yeah. Cut across anybody's province, if you like. That's a better phrase, isn't it? We're here to try and help you, and hopefully celebrating a nice party at the end of the season. Okay, guys? All the best. Go off and enjoy it. Good lad. Okay, boss?
Yeah,
cheers. Okay, lad.
Cheers, Ron.
Okay.
Yeah.
5 minutes.
Yeah,
okay.
you can, yeah.
Cheers.
5 minutes.
By the reaction on his face, his eyes were telling you everything. You know, I don't want this, I don't need this. Go away, I don't need you here, I don't want you here. You know, leave me alone. And I wasn't surprised to see that Ron wasn't there that long.
Maybe.
By the reaction on his face, his eyes were telling you everything. You know, I don't want this, I don't need this. Go away, I don't need you here, I don't want you here. You know, leave me alone. And I wasn't surprised to see that Ron wasn't there that long.
Maybe I need to work on my body language. I certainly didn't feel hostile towards him in any way, not when the tough training going. I think I just let him say his piece of the play, which he did.
Seeing Iffy's reactions, it was obvious to me, and I think anybody else who's in football with common sense, that Iffy really didn't embrace Ron from day one. I think he felt it was his chance to be a manager. He wanted to manage Swindon. If he was going to fail, it was going to be off his own back. He didn't want Ron Atkinson there. But I understand he's a young manager, so he thinks, well, let's see how it goes.
Undeterred by these ominous beginnings, Ron got down to the immediate task in hand and started to analyse the shortcomings of the team, struggling near the bottom of the table.
I still think he needs to add to his squad. I still think, you know, he can't have too many decent players. One thing that does worry me is about the lack of goals. So I think it's imperative that the board of directors do their utmost to try and keep the leading goal scorer, Rory Fallon. If they want to survive, I think he may represent their best chance.
Rory was the one bright spark in the Robins' troubled season so far.
It's a goal.
His 11 league goals, almost 50% of their total, had kept alive their hopes of staying up. Losing him during the January transfer window would spell disaster. The morning of the Gillingham game heralded the first matchday test for the Ron troubleshooter experiment.
That's right. Get them guys, the next generation.
But whilst Iffy and his players set off from a rainy county ground, Ron was 4,000 miles away, enjoying the delights of sun-kissed Barbados. A pre-arranged 2-week holiday meant Ron would have to limit his input to long-distance calls.
Is that Iffy?
How are you, Ron? You okay? What's the weather like over there?
I'm all right. Well, there was just a hint of a cloud, but we managed to blow it away.
Good.
What's it like there? It's raining, isn't it?
No, it's dry. It's okay.
We've been monitoring the match. I've got a mate of mine who's going to keep ringing me with the scoreline in.
Okay.
And I just want to keep hearing him say 0 first.
Yeah, absolutely.
In fact, as Ron basked in the Caribbean sun, back in Blighty, Swindon slumped to a crushing 3-0 defeat at Gillingham.
Long throw away by Midia Ramsey. Houghton back in, deflection, keeper comes, Evans hasn't got there, but Darren Byfield has. Now Danny Spiller's in behind Brown here, gets away from Brown as well. Spiller and Flynn for 2. Oh, it's all going wrong. Here comes the corner, poked towards goal and stabbed in by Neil Harris. 3-0 Gillingham.
Never nice feeling defeat. A man of the defeat as well. We were poor today. We were second best, and it's never a nice thing to accept. So, but we got to accept who we were. We've got to dust ourselves down and start again on Monday.
Eager to offset this disappointing setback, Ron was keen to offer help, as if he looked to boost his playing squad. But the response didn't augur terribly well.
Hello?
What luck have you had in the, the wheeling and dealing business?
Yeah,
what luck have you had? Have you had any?
Yeah, I'm going to follow up some leads over the weekend and hopefully see what I can produce on Monday.
I mean, while I'm here, I can make 1 or 2 calls.
Well,
I can give people.
We were second best and have a nice thing to accept. So, but we've got to accept who we were. We've got to dust ourselves down and start again on Monday.
Eager to offset this disappointing setback, Ron was keen to offer help, as if he looked to boost his playing squad. But the response didn't augur terribly well.
Hello?
What luck have you had in the, the wheeling and dealing business?
Yeah,
what luck have you had? Have you had any?
Yeah, I'm going to follow up some leads over the weekend and hopefully see what I can produce on Monday.
I mean, while I'm here, I can make 1 or 2 calls. I can give people a shout.
To be honest, I'm okay. We've got a few targets I'm going to locate. We don't need loads of bodies just for the sake of it. I've got one in mind who's got a little bit more. He's a quick one. He's a very quick one.
Where's he from?
Well, I'm not saying on camera. I don't know when this is going out, but he's one I've got in mind.
This ain't going out. This ain't going out till the end of the season.
I know, yeah, but don't take the face anyway.
Oh, keep your head up there.
Yeah, absolutely.
There he goes.
Okay. Cheers.
Speak to you later.
Cheers, man.
Shut up, mate.
How was it?
Here's on.
It looked a fairly pointed brush-off from Iffy, and it was becoming clear to Ron that his guidance wasn't really welcome.
He was trying to forge his own way, which, once again, as I've said all along, I can understand that. But if somebody can help you with no vested interest, it's something you've got to work on as it developed, but I wasn't to blame.
Ron's he's got his heart in the right place, and I think he went in with that intention. The problem was, because he met, I wouldn't say a hostile Iffy Onoura, but someone who felt threatened by him and felt that he didn't really want to work alongside him, and that's what made it very, very difficult.
They haven't got to love one another, but you're still useful if you know what makes one another tick, because if you're working together, you've got to have the common cause, and you've got to have that feeling for one another, that you really trust one another and respect one another. You haven't got to be having lunch and dinner together all the time and socialising, but you've got to have that respect for one another, and that wasn't there.
I'd have been far more receptive for anyone, not just Ron, anyone who I think you establish a relationship with, and then you trust and you feel that their advice is well meant and coming from a good place. In hindsight, and hindsight's a wonderful thing, I think it'd been better if he'd come along a week or two before filming. Let's go out for a drink, let's have a beer, let's have something to eat, just get to know each other better. But that relationship never got established.
That was a load of nonsense. I did, honestly.
Together all the time and socialising, but you've got to have respect for one another, and that wasn't there.
I'd have been far more receptive for anyone, not just Ron, anyone who I think you establish a relationship with, and then you trust and you feel that their advice is well meant and coming from a good place. In hindsight, and hindsight's a wonderful thing, I think it'd been better if he'd come along a week or two before filming. Let's go out for a drink, let's have a beer, let's have something to eat, just get to know each other better. But that relationship never got established.
That was a load of nonsense. I did, honestly. You can get to know somebody in 10 minutes without having to spend a fortnight finding out about. I wanted to know him as a manager. You said you didn't get to know him as a person. That wasn't the object of the exercise. The object of the exercise was his management qualities in terms of helping him with the football club.
The following week, Swindon's relegation prospects took a turn for the worse.
Welcome to Swindon Town. The day's been tough because our leading goal scorer wants to leave.
Rory Fallon had restated his desire to leave the club, and it was down to Iffy to try and charm him into a change of heart.
I've got to speak to my distracted striker. Obviously, I'm a little bit disappointed because I thought you might have spoken to me earlier. A lot of clubs want you. That doesn't mean to say it's the right move for you. You will not lose a thing, not a thing, by waiting. Honestly, trust me, you're better off here. Promise you, honestly. Give us some thought, mate. Top man up. See ya. Bye-bye. Bye-bye. Oh, God.
Back in Barbados, fearing the worst over the Fallon situation, Ron resolved to ignore Iffy's reluctance and press on with a hunt for new players. To try and get Swindon the best deal possible, he pulled a favour with one of his old players.
I still think, he may not agree with me at the time, but I still think he's going to need some fresh blood around him. So basically I'm on that, I'm handing out the begging bowl and seeing if you've got anything you can help us with, you know.
I mean, like, I've got a couple of good young kids. We've got Rob Elvin's 18-year-old centre forward, and Lloyd Dyer has been out on loan to QPR. Them two have been doing well in the reserves, and, you know, if he fancies them, we might be able to do something.
Okay, well that's fair enough what you've said to us, and I'll touch base with you and I'm back, pal.
Okay, thanks Ron, all the best mate, have a good time, cheers, bye.
But later that week, Iffy gave further notice he was going to do things his way. Ignoring Ron's groundwork with West Brom, he signed out-of-favour Sheffield Wednesday frontman Lee Peacock instead. But the journeyman striker seemed less than match fit for a new role.
Well, that's fair enough what you've said to us, and I'll touch base with you and I'm back, pal.
Okay, thanks Ron, all the best mate, have a good time, cheers, bye.
But later that week, Iffy gave further notice he was going to do things his way. Ignoring Ron's groundwork with West Brom, he signed out-of-favour Sheffield Wednesday frontman Lee Peacock instead. But the journeyman striker seemed less than match fit for a new role in the relegation dogfight.
It's not been in a way ideal because I've not played in like over a month. I'm not really trained in the last month, so just been thrown in the deep end really.
As for Ron and Iffy, absence wasn't making the heart grow fonder. By the time of Swindon's next match against Bournemouth, there was barely any contact between them. Still, this didn't prevent Swindon from picking up a much-needed win.
Here's Curitan. Jamie Curitan scores for Swindon. Miglioranzi, 2-0.
But the Robins made a bit of a meal of their victory. Having raced into a 2-goal lead, their defensive frailties allowed Bournemouth to equalise.
Peter and Commonplat's challenge, that's a penalty. Peter, 2-2, all square.
It was then left to Rory Fallon to underline his immense value as he provided the crucial breakthrough.
Rory Fallon rises and scores! Swindon back in front. Rory Fallon 3-2.
And finally, to seal a perfect afternoon for Iffy, new signing Lee Peacock came off the bench to put the match safe.
And the ball is loose, it's Lee Peacock on his debut, and he scores a debut goal which seals the points for Swindon Town. Swindon 4, Bournemouth 2. And Iffy Onoura's new signing, Lee Peacock, has wrapped up the victory. So Swindon Town back to winning ways.
Having notched up his first victory in 5 games, Iffy was clearly cock-a-hoop. Brazenly, in front of the cameras, he started to pour scorn on Ron's troubleshooting efforts.
I think he's still going to try and get his foothold in.
Brazenly, in front of the cameras, he started to pour scorn on Ron's troubleshooting efforts.
So Swindon Town back to winning ways.
Having notched up his first victory in 5 games, Iffy was clearly cock-a-hoop. Brazenly, in front of the cameras, he started to pour scorn on Ron's troubleshooting efforts.
I think he's still going to try and get his foothold in the whole thing really, and he's trying to recommend players. To be honest, I've got the squad now, Dave. I'm not bringing anyone else in because what I'm going to do with them. It's just one more set of kit for the kit man to watch. There's no point, you know. If he's gone out and he goes, I went down to Plymouth Reserves the other day and saw this great kid playing, and I think, oh right, fair enough. If he's just ringing Brian Robson, who played for him 20 years ago, and saying, what have you got? For me, I could do that. You know, it's you got to do a little bit better, really. A little bit better, really. I could do that. You know, it's got to do a little bit better, really.
I do remember him being a bit derogatory and a bit disparaging about both myself and Brian Robson, I think it was. Well, you know, once you start being a disparaging when you've had 12 games or 10 games as a rookie manager about people that have done far more, you know.
I quickly got the feeling that there was nothing new in what he said. I could have rung up Brian Robson, people like that, and managers and said, can I have him, if I felt those players were right for me. I didn't, because I didn't feel they were right for me, so it didn't really bring anything new to the table for me.
It's not always the case that if he can phone Brian Robson and ask him for a couple of players, it's not as simple as that, because a lot of managers actually believe that they can develop their own youngsters and bring them on in their own football club. So you need somebody who they know and they trust and who's done well for them to ring them up and say, look, release a couple of those players out to do me a favour.
I wasn't throwing the whole idea out. I was just throwing out that idea that was revolutionary. Without Ron there, I'd never even dared pick up the phone to West Brom or Brian Robson to ask for a player. I would have done, because I did it in the past. That's what I was nailing in the head, not because I poo-pooed the idea about it.
I'm not particularly interested in what he had to say, in that respect, because I would back my knowledge against his any day of the week.
After the break, Ron returns to England hoping to get Iffy on side. But with Swindon's prize asset Rory Fallon poised to walk away from the club, it's not a happy reunion.
I'm saying,
let's try and cut one corner at a time. First and foremost.
Okay, Ron, you can cut one corner at a time, not in this job. Not in this job. There's corners everywhere.
Wouldn't have gone on much longer like that, because I would have, I might have got the guns out and started blazing.
Big Ron's first taste of troubleshooting at League One strugglers Swindon Town was turning into a bit of a nightmare. Relations between him and rookie manager Iffy Onoura got off to a shaky start. Now, as Ron returned from his holiday in Barbados, he harboured serious doubts about Iffy's managerial capabilities. His main bugbear was what he saw as the club's lack of fight in hanging on to Rory Fallon, their unsettled leading goalscorer.
Got to keep.
Yeah, got to keep.
Got to keep. You've got to be strong with it. You've got to be strong with him. Say, look, son.
His problem is now, and this is where it gets a little bit awkward. His dad's over from New Zealand, who is a major influence on him.
I'd take the gamble and try and keep him here till the end of the season, regardless. Yeah. It might be that at the end of the season.
Then they moved on to the subject of goalkeeping coaching. Ron wanted to make more use of Swindon's former star keeper Fraser Digby, who the club could only afford to bring in on a part-time basis.
He was somebody that I felt they could have got more out of at the club. Because he was a big name at the club, you know, he got a big reputation at the club, he got contacts, and he was a good goalkeeping coach to boot.
How many goalkeeping coaches there twice a week?
So if we can get somebody to subsidise him once a week...
But what you're saying now, but you might say, I understand what you're saying.
I know what you're going to say to me next. You're going to say, yeah, but what about his relocation? Let's try and cut one corner at a time. First and foremost...
Kevon, you can cut one corner at a time, not in this job. Not in this job, there's corners everywhere.
I understand that.
Nobody in his right mind is going to say, oh, no, I don't like that. I mean, if you say you don't like that idea, you go, oh, hang on a bit, that's total... You know, it's like saying, they've allowed us a 3-goal start on Saturday, I don't like that. You know, just because it...
I've got to manage everyone. I've got to manage everyone.
Yeah, but you've still got to take compartments and say, that might be...
No, I've got to manage everyone. I disagree.
On January the 25th, the Swindon fans' worst fears were realised when the club board accepted an increased bid and sold Fallon to League One rivals Swansea City.
You're always disappointed as a manager if you want to put the team together and you lose it for whatever reason. But I'm a realist, I know what the job's about. So we just got to rebuild and start again in some respects.
You can dispense, you can get rid of a midfield player because you can block up in midfield. You can maybe get rid of a fullback. But, you know, front players are specialists. Front players and goalkeepers win you games. You know, and they had to win games. And I know there would be pressure from up above. I know that, but that's where a manager goes in and says, look, I'm sorry, gentlemen. You told me you want me to manage it, you want me to keep you up. I have got to have him, or I've got to have a first-class replacement.
The idea that I didn't fight hard enough for Rory is ridiculous. He was your centre forward, you know. You know, he's your totem. He's your leader on the pitch. You know, he was great in both boxes and he scored goals for them. You know, how can you not fight if you're not going to fight for your centre forward to stay at the club? Who are you going to fight for? He'd become that important to us. So I certainly didn't watch him walk out of the club with anything other than regret, and I felt at the time, it's not hindsight, that might come back to haunt us.
I would say it was the most significant thing that put them down. I think if they'd have kept Fallon, then maybe he might have stayed up.
Next, a Fallonless Swindon headed for Southend to take on the division's table toppers. Predictably, the Robins looked toothless up front. The home team had little trouble brushing them aside.
Scour's cross, so turned away by Evans and turned back in and turned in by Luke Guttridge. Here's Wayne Gray for Southend. On for Guttridge and on for Gower, and that's two. And Swindon already two behind.
By now, Iffy was making it plain he didn't want any further part in the project. He refused to wear a mic during matches. Access to the dressing room was denied. And after the Southend game, he seemed barely able to acknowledge Ron.
Will you get anybody in?
I'm hoping so. We'll make a lot of calls over the weekend and see what we can do.
Well, I'll leave you with a couple of names. I've been ringing around a couple of names. Looking on the evidence of that. What about Big Benjamin there?
Trevor. Yeah, Trevor's a strong boy, yeah.
You know, there's food for thought. If you want any help on them.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah, sure.
All right, lad. Have a good weekend.
Yeah, we'll do.
We'll see you later.
Cheers.
He had to be honest with Ron at that moment in time. He should have said to Ron, look, I don't want you, you know, let's not do this conversation. Let's not make me up so I can make you look bad and myself look bad. You know, with hindsight, he'll look back and he'll probably cringe himself if he...
I think if he just didn't want to take on board what Ron had to say, he didn't want him there, he wanted him out of the place, and really, if he was bringing it to a head, he really wanted it to finish, and so basically it was going to finish in the end because he was going to make it impossible for Ron to do what he needed to do to have an impact on Swindon.
I think if you look at it like one of them shape, I think you're building up, and then, like I said, the Southend game on the Friday night when we did that to camera, from then it was just a gradual, I can't remember the date of that, it was a gradual feeling that this isn't quite working out. This is all about contacts and people like that. And then I started thinking, you know, this isn't really for me.
I mean, if we had continued, let me tell you, if we had continued, it wouldn't have gone on much longer like that. Because I would have, I might have got the guns out and started blazing.
The following week, Ron decided he had to make an emergency visit to the county ground and have it out with Iffy once and for all.
You seem as if you're not buying into this at all.
I think it's a concept which in theory is great. I think the practical element of it has proved a problem. I mean, it's like the mics. As I got to a point where I think the guys were asking me to mic up for games. I'm saying, no, I'm not comfortable with that, because as much as I'm sure it's good TV and sure this to have the raw passion of a manager on the touchline during a game.
That's what the people want to see. They want to see the effect.
But I don't want my players to see that.
I understand sometimes as a manager you've got to be your own man and stuff like that. But I think you kept me at arm's length. I really do.
If I was you, coming into the situation from the cold a little bit, what I would have done, tell me if I'm wrong, I might have thought, you know what, away from the cameras, go for a beer. But it was all straight to camera, and it was all straight to camera.
But we're not doing a television show.
No, but what happens is that you don't build up that relationship first. I don't know you any better, and you don't know me any better.
No, but I think
I don't know.
With all the will in the world, I think a lot of that's down to you.
You think so?
Oh, I do. I think you've gone. I think you've withdrawn, and yet, as I say, the other night in the car, I thought things were good.
You know what we talked about in the car on the way back? You and your stories in the car on the way back. All it was anecdotes.
I mean, half the time you're on the phone, weren't you? Tell me, what do you feel you can genuinely do to see whether it's, you know?
I want to get home and put my feet up for now and clear my head, and we'll chat tomorrow.
After their frank discussion, the two men seemed resigned to the fact that their relationship had little future.
From my point of view, I thought, well, that's your loss. I thought, I thought as soon as it was obvious it wasn't going to go anywhere, I thought that's a bigger loss for him and his club than it is for us. Particularly, we bounced straight into the Peterborough situation.
On paper, and you look at it and think, well, he was obviously, there's a guy there with all his experience, more fool him, he didn't tap into it. Well, it wasn't more fool him at all. I was more willing to tap into any kind of experience had I felt that it was coming from the right source for the right reasons and in the right way. I never got that impression.
I'm disappointed for the club, I'm disappointed for Iffy. It was potentially a very exciting project. I just think it was one distraction too many, coupled with the pressure of a young manager trying to keep his team in a division.
And so, after precisely 26 days, Ron and Iffy went their separate ways. With Ron moving on to the battle at Peterborough United, Iffy, despite injuries to key players, staged a valiant fight against relegation, but it wasn't quite enough. A loss at bitter rivals Bristol City gave Swindon the unwelcome honour of being the first club to go from the Premiership to the bottom division. At the end of the season, Iffy lost his job.
With hindsight, if you look back at that situation and think, I should have used Ron to the best of my ability. The problem with it was, Iffy thought Ron needed Iffy more than Iffy needed Ron. And that's what made it very, very difficult.
Hindsight's a great thing. I'm sure Iffy perhaps wishes he'd have spoke up and told his director straight away, no, I don't want Ron here, I'm having nothing to do with it. Or even if he embraced it for a little while, to actually should have said, look, after a week, this is not working, it's not what I want, I want to finish it, I don't want to go on. But of course, he's a young guy. It wasn't as if Ron was his choice. If it had been his choice, then it could have been a totally different situation. And it's a shame because somebody coming in to help him might have helped him along the lines and might have helped perhaps keep him in a job.
I've got no dislike at all in my body about Ron Atkinson, no dislike at all about him. But in terms of our relationship and what it needed to be for the show and for the club and for myself in that situation, just didn't even get off the ground.
The upshot of it all is he didn't want to buy into it, shouldn't have bought into it, and in many ways, although we learned a little bit from it, it's a pity we went there.
Since Iffy's departure, Swindon Town, with the help of a new financial backer, have brought in former England international Dennis Wise as manager, alongside Gus Perez, in an attempt to bounce straight back into League One. And Wise's first month in charge saw them top the table, having won their first 6 matches.